Yes, my friends, in this video, I'm going to review the iPhone 12 mini after more than 3 years since it first came out. I'm going to compare it against the Android alternative, against the most recent iPhone models, and I'm going to test every single one of its components to find out if it's still worth it right now in 2024. Before I start, I want to remind you that, at least for now, this iPhone has a very good price on Amazon. And since I assume a lot of you are interested in buying it, I left a direct link in the description, so at the end of the video you can check it out. To begin with, I'm going to be completely honest. When I first got this iPhone, I got it by mistake. My plan was to buy the normal 6.1-inch iPhone 12, but I didn't read the page when I was buying it, and I ended up with the mini version of the phone. When I found out, it was like a shot in the chest because I didn't want a mini iPhone. I thought it was way too small. In fact, for the first 3 days I had it, I didn't even take it out of the box because my plan was to ship it back. But one day, I don't really know why, my curiosity got the best of me and I decided to open it up and give it a try. Well, after 30 minutes, only 30 minutes with the phone, I was already in love. The iPhone 12 mini is a brilliant phone with a brilliant size. For the first time since 2013, I was able to comfortably use my phone with one hand. I was able to navigate around apps without any crazy maneuvers, and I was able to wear tight jeans without feeling like I had an iMac in my pocket. And I know most of you don't really like small phones because nowadays it's all about video, and to watch videos you want a bigger display with a higher resolution, but believe me, I'm telling you from experience, you won't miss that big display as much as you think. In fact, in my case, I came from a very big iPhone, the iPhone XS Max, from which I jumped into the smallest iPhone since the iPhone 4, the 12 mini. And even then, after only about 3 days, I was already used to it and I didn't wanted to switch back. Oh, and also, despite it being over 3 years old now, as I said earlier, it still looks pretty much identical to the newer models. We still get the same glass and aluminum combination, the same bottom layout, and the same flat sides. The only difference is that the cameras are lined up vertically instead of being 90 degrees to the left as opposed to the other, which, let's be honest, it's a stupid little design tweak for people to know you have the newer model, but it's pretty much the same design. When it comes to the internal components, it comes with an A14 Bionic chip and 4 GB of RAM, which are specs you would expect from a mid-range phone in 2024. Something like a Galaxy A54 or even an A55, which makes sense because right now all of these phones have about the same price. Something funny is that when this phone first came out, everybody was very surprised at how insanely powerful it was. The A14 processor was a huge leap forward as opposed to the A13. And I say it's something funny because even till this day, it still manages to surprise me every time that I use it. Apps load up and run super fast. It moves around the homepage without any hiccups, and I personally haven't had any performance issues, even when playing the most demanding games. The only complaint that I have is that if you put it against its main competitor, the Galaxy S21, also from the same year, it feels noticeably slower. Not because it has a worse processor, not because it is a worse build phone, but because the Galaxy S21 has a 120Hz display, while the iPhone 12 mini has a 60Hz display. And yes, I know, a lot of people say that they don't really notice the difference between 120Hz and 60Hz, but a lot of other people, like me, do tell the difference. So yeah, you should keep in mind that although both phones have about the same power, the iPhone is going to feel slower because of its display. As I said earlier, the iPhone only has 4 GB of RAM, which for many people is the main complaint or reason not to buy the phone because, well, pretty much any other phone in the same price range has 8 GB of RAM. But I have to say, after trying it very intensively for the last couple of weeks, I can guarantee that this is not going to be a problem. This iPhone is capable of running multiple apps at the same time, and it has never slowed down because of a lack of memory. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the typical 4 GB of RAM on an iPhone is like 8 GB on Android claim, is actually true. And well, you can trust me on that because as you've seen earlier, I've been comparing it to the Galaxy S21, which has 8 gigabytes of RAM. When it comes to the battery, well, we could say this is one of the weak spots on the iPhone 12 mini. At the end of the day, this is a very small phone, so it also has to have a small battery with lower capacity. Now, don't get too discouraged because despite all this, it is way better than I expected. Comparing it to the normal iPhone 12, we can see that it only loses about 10% of battery more than the bigger brother. So the difference is not that big, and you will probably be fine, unless you spend the entire day without access to a charger. Obviously, I would not recommend this phone if what you want is a battery champ, because for that, the bigger phones with bigger batteries will always be the better buy, but for everybody else, as I said, it is going to be fine. Oh, and also, it comes with a bunch of modern technologies that make things very easy and convenient when it comes to charging. As you can see, it can do wireless charging and it can also do MagSafe charging, which for those of you who don't know is Apple's proprietary charging mechanism. As always, you will be limited to 20 watts when it comes to the charging speed, which is neither good or bad. We could say it's a pretty average charging speed. And also, as always, Apple doesn't include a charger in the box. So you will have to spend 20 extra bucks to get the wall brick. Then when it comes to the display, things are looking even better because the iPhone 12 mini doesn't feel like a 3-year-old iPhone at all. It has a 1080p panel with 1200 nits of brightness, and of course, it is incredibly well calibrated. So the colors you see on the screen are the same ones you will see in real life. The only thing that's lacking, as always, and as I said earlier, is the refresh rate of 120 Hz to be more specific, because Apple for some reason refuses to include this feature on their non-Pro iPhones. And well, also something that caught my attention was the old notch. Let's remember it's 2024, the era of the dynamic island, and coming back to the classic notch, I was honestly surprised. As you can see, it is almost twice as thick. But well, to be fair, it's one of those things you stop seeing after a couple hours. And of course, now it's time to talk about the most important component on this phone, the cameras, which as you can see, judging by the quality of the video that I'm taking with the main camera, this is one of the best components on the iPhone 12 mini. As it's been the case for the past couple of years with normal iPhones, we have a main camera with 12 megapixels, and we have a slightly smaller with slightly less quality optics, ultra-wide camera with also 12 megapixels. As always, let's begin by talking about the main camera, which is kind of the same one we could find on the iPhone 11. They both share the same sensor size and will overall the same sensor, so the image quality is going to be, pretty similar. But well, the iPhone 12 has a little bit more aperture on the optics, so the camera is going to be able to capture a little bit more light, and I guess results will look a little bit sharper and a little bit better. As many of you know, I made a video on the iPhone 11 a couple weeks ago, so I've been able to compare the results from the iPhone 11 to the ones on the iPhone 12, and well, let's put it this way. There are some differences if you zoom in and you try to pixel peep, but for you right now looking at this images on a YouTube video, you will not be able to notice a difference. You will not be able to distinguish which one is better than the other. And well, as always, we get the same ultra-wide camera. As many of you know, Apple for some inexplicable reason, refuses to upgrade their ultra-wide camera on their normal iPhones. It's the same one we could find on the iPhone 11, on the normal iPhone 12, on the iPhone 13, on the iPhone 14, and on the iPhone 15. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is not a bad camera. It gives you pretty decent results, but if you compare it to the Galaxy S21 from the same year, it is a little bit worse. And if you compare it to the Galaxy S24, it is noticeably worse. For some reason, Apple doesn't want to upgrade it. It's not a tragedy. It is a decent ultra-wide camera, but if you're into this kind of, ultra-wide photography, wide open images, well, you're not lucky. Oh, and as always, I wanted to show you the same photo taken with the ultra-wide camera and the main camera to remind you that both of these cameras are very different. A lot of people seem to think that the only difference is the focal length, but that's not the case. They both have different sensors with different sizes and different optics, so the quality of the images is going to be very different. As you can see, the main sensor is noticeably better than the ultra-wide sensor. So, unless you need to take an ultra-wide photo, I suggest you use that main sensor to take most of your photos because the overall quality is going to be way better, noticeably better. And of course, we also have to talk about the selfie camera, which, well, let's put it this way, it's a little bit disappointing because as well as the ultra-wide camera, it shares the same optics and the same sensor as the one on the iPhone 11, which is not something bad. The selfie camera on the iPhone 11 was brilliant, so the selfie camera on the iPhone 12 mini is also going to be brilliant. It takes 4K video up to 60 FPS. It has very good dynamic range for a selfie camera, so it's not like it's a horrible quality camera, but I wish they had done something to the optics, something to the sensor, something. The only thing left is to conclude. Is the iPhone 12 mini worth it in 2024? Well, I believe so. Yes, I think it is a very worth it phone. As I said earlier, it has a very, very good price, and all of the features that it gives you for that amount of money, I think make it very worth it. It has incredible build quality. It has a very good processor, very decent battery for the size, very good display, pretty decent cameras. I mean, for the price, it is a no-brainer. If you like compact phones, this is an amazing phone and you're gonna love it. I'm telling you. As I said earlier, you have a link in the description to buy it at a very good price, amazing price. And now that the video is about to end, I recommend you go check it out.